Greetings, viewers. Why the different intro? Because actually this is not another episode of my Moon version playthrough, believe it or not. Because, well, the thing of it is, first of all, I'm sorry I haven't posted any new episodes of my playthrough lately. I've been busy with work, and in my game, I've also been busy with the online competition, the Battle of Alola. So if we go down here to Battle Video, I can show you some of the battles I've been through in the competition. So yeah, I've gone through my 45 battles for the competition, and out of those 45 battles, I managed to record 8 victories. And when I say record 8 victories, I mean I did technically win a few more matches than that, but those people decided to be sore losers and disconnect at the last second so that I couldn't get the battle video recordings of me beating them. But I recorded 8 victories, and I figured I might as well show off some of the highlights of the first online competition in Sun and Moon, and show you some of my stronger moments. So yeah, we got 8 videos, and the first one is up against some guy with a crazy name that I have no clue how to pronounce or say at all. It looks Japanese, but it might be Chinese, I don't know. Some Asian guy. So we're just going to call him some Asian guy. And it's my Incineroar, Beware, and Raichu against his Tapu Koko, Araquanid, and also Beware. So yeah, most of these battles are fairly short, about 10 turns or less usually. So yeah, he starts off with Tapu Koko, and I start off with my Incineroar. Yeah, I managed to get my main team up to level 40 in preparation for these battles on the tournament, or competition I should say. But it auto levels them up to 50 anyway. So I didn't need to bring them up to 40, but I wanted to in order to learn some of the best moves I could at the time. Like, I still got friggin' Fire Fang on my Incineroar, for example. Fire Fang is pretty weak. But, you know, it gets the job done when it needs to, I guess. Still, I can't wait till I level up some more and learn some better moves. But, you know, I did the best I could with what I had, all things considered. And a lot of people in this competition had legendaries and fucking ultra beasts on their team. So obviously it was mismatched in those battles. Like, I struggled really hard. I came close to winning against some ultra beast users and some legendary users a few times, but I was just never quite able to beat them. But I did manage to beat this one Tapu Koko user, so I'm proud of myself for that. So yeah, I set up the nasty plot. That's one of my favorite things to do. I love my nasty plotting Raichu so much. She sets up and then she just sweeps everything. It's beautiful. She's my special sweeper, and then I got my physical sweeper, Beware. Between the two of them, I can clean up pretty nicely if I get the chance to set up. Yeah, Electro Ball +2 destroys Araquanid. And then all he has left is his Beware. And of course a +2 Psychic will take care of that real quick. And that's how I won my first recorded battle in the tournament. Like, I won a battle before that, but the guy disconnected. I was really frustrated that my first victory in the competition, the guy had to disconnect, so I couldn't even save the video. But it's whatever. Next up, we have Alec. So let's check out my battle against him. Yeah, I just recorded my wins, because if I recorded all 45, or as many of the 45 battles as I possibly could, then trying to show them off all in one video would make the video way too long. Even showing off all my losses would be way too long. So I just showed off my sparse few victories for a nice short video. I figured that ought to do nicely. So yeah, we got an Ash Greninja here, and I figured I can't let him set up, get that Battle Bond ability activated, so I U-turned, got some nice damage in, and then I switched to my Beware. And when you know I switch in my Beware, shit gets real. Even without the Swords Dance boost, he does insane amounts of damage. Like look at this Lycanroc. I don't remember. Did I set up or not? No, he went for the rock climb. That's right. And then I got confused instantly, but luckily I broke through it for the first turn, and I just annihilated him with a single Brick Break. And that's not even boosted. That's a standard power Brick Break. That's how frickin' overpowered Beware is. So yeah, Golisopod shows up. He does his first impression thing. And poor Beware is so confused that he hits himself, and he doesn't quite kill himself yet. He hangs in there. But then the next turn comes around and he just is like, oh, fuck it, I'm done with this, and kills himself. But there wasn't much he could have done against Golisopod anyway. He goes for a Pin Missile, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, Wishy-Washy comes back in. I love my Wishy-Washy, but I feel like his move pool is lacking. I'm hoping that I can teach him some better moves in the future, especially an Ice-type move. I feel like he really needs a solid Ice-type move, and if he can't learn any Ice-type moves, I may just swap him out with something different for my final main team in the game. Yeah, I'm not really sure why I went with Bulldoze there. I guess I wanted to make sure he was nice and slow, so that my Raichu could beat the crap out of him with Electro Ball. But then when I saw he had the Leech Life, I figured I might as well get as much damage as I could in. And I hit him with Aqua Tail just before he took me down. So yeah, Raichu comes in, and you can tell how this song and dance goes. One good Electro Ball to the face, and the big bad Golisopod goes down easy. And I think that Bulldoze may have helped. Slowed him down just enough to get that boosted damage, because the faster you are, and the slower they are, the more damage Electro Ball does. But I'll probably swap that out for Thunderbolt when I get the chance, especially because I need Thunderbolt for the Z move. I found out that the move that turns into Raichu's unique Z move is Thunderbolt. So I'll have to teach him teach her Thunderbolt later on. But anyway, our next battle is up against David. So yeah. This was a really fun online competition. I may not have done that great, but considering that I'm not even finished with the story mode of the game yet, I think I did fairly well. You know, there were a couple people in the competition I saw who still had unevolved Pokemon, were probably just starting out their games, and I kind of felt sad for them. I think even one time I forfeited a match because I just didn't think it was worth it, slaughtering these innocent baby Pokemon who had no chance of winning anyway. There was no sport in it, you know what I mean? So I let them have that win. But it was fun. I got to see my team in action against some real other players and their teams. And, you know, with the exception of going up against fucking legendaries and Ultra Beasts, I think I did pretty well for myself. I think my team is coming out nicely. And I'm still not sure how I'm going to switch things up. from how my team is set up now. My current team, by the way, is Incineroar, Lycanroc, Raichu, Wishy-Washy, Lurantis, and Beware. And it's a good team. It's pretty balanced. But I think this was a nice opportunity to see what some of the weaker links in my team are, and what some of my weaknesses my team has overall. And hopefully it'll help me build around that and improve my team. And if I need to swap out a member or two, then so be it. Oh, and by the way, it's total bullshit that Rock Slide didn't kill Incineroar, but I was like, the Cross Chop missed, so I'm like, okay, let's just finish it off with Crunch and pretend that turn never happened. Pretend there was no extra turn. Pretend the Rock Slide just killed him like it was supposed to. So yeah, then we have another Golisopod, but oh, those Stealth Rocks doing some nice juicy damage. I love setting up Stealth Rocks with my Lycanroc because nobody sees it coming. It's like, who would expect friggin' Lycanroc to set up Stealth Rock? Like, when you see Lycanroc, you expect, oh, he's going to go for the counter, oh, he's going to go for raw damage. No, nobody sees the Stealth Rocks coming from Lycanroc, Midnight Form, so it's nice when I'm able to sneakily get that up. And it helps. Like, setting up stuff like that can really make a difference sometimes. But you gotta know when it's safe to set up and when it's not. And sometimes it can be hard to judge that. Oh yeah, and another thing, your Iron Defense means nothing against Darkest Lariat because it ignores stat changes. I love that. I love how Darkest Lariat came through in the clutch up against that Iron Defense. Not quite enough to kill him right then and there. And he uses Struggle Bug. I'm like, really? People got some weird moves on these Golisopods. Like, the last one had Pin Missile, and this one has Struggle Bug. Like, I just figured I'd see nothing but First Impression and Leech Life on all of them, but some people have some pretty unexpected moves on their Pokemon, as I learned. I learned that the hard way with some of these battles. You can never quite predict what somebody's going to go for until they go for it. But yeah, that was my win against David. And now for recorded victory number 5 against Chris and his most interesting team. He actually used a Carbink, which I thought was interesting. I was like, now there's a Pokemon you don't see competitively too often. Or at least I don't. So yeah, he starts with Carbink and I start with Raichu. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know what this thing could possibly do to me, so I'm just going to Nasty Plot and see what happens. And interestingly, he goes for the Toxic. And I'm like, huh. That's very peculiar indeed, but it's not going to stop me. So then with the +2, I dish out my Hidden Power Water, which I love the fact that this Raichu has Hidden Power Water. I just think it's so perfect, because she's like a surfer. I just think it's so fitting. Oh, and this is where things get crazy with the Trick Room. So my Raichu is fast. Like, she's faster than most other, like, regular Pokemon I've seen. So now with the Trick Room up, she's slower. So she gets hit by that Moonblast. And I throw out the Electro Ball because I didn't know if he was going to switch or not. Takes down the Carbink, but now I'm like, okay, now I'm going to be slower than most other Pokemon, so I need to think very carefully. He sends out Bruxish, so I'm like, okay, I need to save Raichu for Bruxish. Because at the moment, like, I can't attack the Bruxish because I would get hit with that Crunch first because of the Trick Room. So I was thinking if I can stall until the Trick Room goes down, then maybe I can kill it first. But in the meantime, I go for the Crunch with Lycanroc, and it does some heavy damage, but not quite enough to kill it. And then it finishes me off with the Waterfall. And I'm thinking, was this worth it? Should I have just sacrificed Raichu? I send in Incineroar, and I'm like, oh boy, this is where things get dangerous. But luckily, Incineroar was slower than Bruxish, so with the Trick Room, he goes first and finishes it off with Darkest Lariat. I was actually able to make use of the enemy's Trick Room and use it against them. I just thought that was awesome. And right in the nick of time, the Twisted Dimensions return to normal. So then we got Crobat using Acrobatics. And I'm like, well, there's nothing much else I can do here. I'm just going to spam Darkest Lariat. And then I'm thinking, oh, geez. Now that the dimensions are back to normal, that Crobat is probably faster than my Raichu. And there's no way I'm going to be able to survive a hit with Raichu in its condition. So things pretty much all came down to Incineroar. So I just spammed Darkest Lariat until I couldn't spam no more. And hoping it would be enough. And he went for the Leech Life to try and get as much HP back as he could. Trying to survive, because he knew that if I got down to Raichu, he'd be faster and he'd win. But Darkest Lariat managed to do just enough damage to finish it off before that could happen. So that was a pretty close match. I actually, like I said, I had to take advantage of his Trick Room, which I thought was really interesting, in order for me to win that one. And then we got this guy, Mr. Asian Man, with his crazy name I can't pronounce. So yeah, wanted to battle me. So I was like, alright, Mr. What's your name? Let's do this. I start with Incineroar. He starts with Lycanroc. And I'm instantly like, ah shit, I screwed up. There's no way Incineroar's going up against that thing. So I switch to Beware. My Beware's nickname is Bear Nair, and it's so easy to mix it up sometimes. But yeah, he tanks that Stone Edge. And I go for the Brick Break. And that immediately destroys Lycanroc. Like, I know Lycanroc's not that tanky, but it just shows how powerful Beware is. Its attack stat is ridiculous. So he sends in Incineroar, and I'm like, okay, you go ahead and use Fire Fang, and I'll just keep using Brick Break. But unfortunately, it's not quite enough to finish off Incineroar. He's a good sturdy Pokemon. He's a starter. He has to be. And he finishes off Beware with that other Fire Fang. So I send in my own Incineroar. So we have an Incineroar versus Incineroar fight. And luckily my Incineroar is faster and knows Brick Break. So it finishes him off. And then he sends in the Arcanine. And I'm like, okay, we got ourselves an Arcanine here. And he goes for the Flare Blitz. Which is decent. Well, you know, since it's not very effective, it does some decent damage. But at this point, I'm just spamming Darkest Lariat until I can't spam no more. I found my Incineroar had to rely on that strategy a lot. Like, when all else fails, just spam Darkest Lariat and hope for the best. It's his fallback move, but for a fallback move, it's pretty good, I'd say. It usually ends up being a 2 or 3 hit KO. So if he can tank what they're dishing out, then it tends to work out for me. Like it did right here. And that's how Incineroar beat Arcanine. It had nothing but Fire-type moves, and I just kept spamming Darkest Lariat. The end. And then next, we got this guy. Oh, Krona. This is probably my favorite of these recorded battles. And you'll see why. Well, you already saw he went with the 3 starters. But this one came right down to the wire. Like, I barely managed to win this by the skin of my teeth. And it was just such an incredible battle. So, it starts off my Incineroar versus his Decidueye. He knows better than to stay in. He switches out for Primarina. But I threw out the Darkest Lariat just in case he was an idiot. Doesn't do much to Primarina. But at this point I'm like, if I switch out, that's just what he'd be expecting me to do. He'll never expect me to stay in and just spam Darkest Lariat. It might just be crazy enough to work. But he throws out the Sparkling Aria anyway, and it does some heavy damage, so I'm like, fuck it, might as well just use one more Darkest Lariat. I just did not give a fuck that Primarina was out on the field. I'm like, I don't care, I'm just spamming my move. Screw you. So she goes for the Moonblast, maybe predicting a last minute switch, but I just stayed in till I finally lost there. So then I switched to Raichu, and I think you can tell what happens. He switches out Primarina, because he's not stupid, and goes for Decidueye. And Decidueye tanks that Electro Ball. And at this point, I know he's probably going to go for a Spirit Shackle or another Ghost-type move. So I switch to my Beware, thinking it won't do shit. And actually, he goes for the Sucker Punch. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, he Leaf Blades me. And I just toss out that Brutal Swing. I know it's not quite powerful enough to one-hit KO, but I just wanted to get as much damage as I could. I didn't feel cocky enough to set up there. So then he switches to Incineroar. I throw out another Brutal Swing, but it's not very effective against Incineroar. So Incineroar uses Low Sweep. And I'm like, oh boy. That hurt a lot, but at least I get the chance to throw out one Brick Break before I go down. And it's just barely not enough to kill Incineroar. I was so upset about that. It was so close to killing him. So I'm like, oh jeez. I'm losing Pokemon left and right. All I got left is my Raichu. It's up to Raichu to clean up all three of them. So I went for it. I did the Electro Ball, and that finished off Incineroar. So then this guy sends in his Decidueye, and he's thinking he's had just about enough of this. He goes for the Sucker Punch, and I figured it's all over. But to my insane shock, Raichu tanks the fucking Sucker Punch and finishes off Decidueye with Psychic. That was the fucking table-turning moment right there. I did not expect Raichu to survive Sucker Punch at all. And at that point, it just came down to speed, and Electro Ball was more than enough to finish off Primarina, and that's how I won. I beat the three starters by the skin of my teeth, and that was just such an amazing battle. I'm so glad I got that one on recording. So yeah, just a couple more battles to go. Next up is Diego. I love that pose, though. That JoJo's Bizarre Adventure pose. I can just picture the Japanese letters for menacing floating around him when they strike a pose like that. I need to find out how to get that pose for my character. So yeah, he starts out with Minior. I figured, what can Minior do to Raichu? I'll set up the nasty plot. Let's see what he does. And he actually sets up the Stealth Rock, and I'm like, hey, that's the thing I normally do. Cheeky bastard. So I'm like, alright, enough of this. +2 Electro Ball, you're fucking dead. It's super effective. Good night, Minior. And then he goes for Pyukumuku, and I'm like, ah, shit. No choice. So I zero hesitation, just went for the Electro Ball, knowing that his ability would take me out along with him, innards out. It's basically a free counter. And yeah. I sacrificed Raichu to take down 2 of his Pokemon. I figured it was worth it. So then I send in my Lurantis, and he goes for Mimikyu. And Lurantis takes a little bit of damage from the pointed stones. And he goes for a Shadow Claw. I throw out the Aerial Ace to get rid of that disguise. Bloop. So his disguise gets busted. Now I can actually start doing damage to him. He hits me with another Shadow Claw, and I live on 5 HP. So I can hit him with that Petal Blizzard, which puts him in red. Unfortunately, he finishes off Lurantis with the Dazzling Gleam. So Lurantis doesn't get the kill this time. But she did a beautiful job anyway. I send in Lycanroc. And all it takes is one last crunch to finish the job. And that was a fun battle. I enjoyed battling Mimikyu. It was interesting. And Pyukumuku is... he's the new Wobbuffet, so there's that, you know. And for the last battle, well, my last victory that I recorded, we have MXA. He starts out with Salazzle. And I happen to start out with Lycanroc. So that was a good advantage from the beginning for me. So he goes for the Toxic. And I'm like, you can have your stupid Toxic. Meanwhile, I'll set up my Stealth Rock. One of my favorite things to do, setting up Stealth Rock. So yeah, I'm hurt by the poison. He goes for the Dragon Pulse. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't Dragon Pulse. And I just throw out the Rock Slide, expecting it to kill it instantly. And it does. I couldn't remember if it one-hit KO'd it or not. It did. But the poison is getting worse with every turn. And he goes for Azumarill. Or Azumarill, however you pronounce it. So I stay in, figuring I've pretty much lost Insanity Wolf at this point. That's the name of my Lycanroc. And he just Aqua Jets me before I can even do anything. So I go to wipe out my Raichu. And I set up the nasty plot, thinking, what can Azumarill do to Raichu? Probably not anything that'll kill it in one hit. So he goes for the Play Rough, and it does hurt a lot, but it doesn't kill me, and that's all I need. I just need enough to survive and use that +2 Electro Ball. So Azumarill goes down, and his last Pokemon is Passimian. And I felt a little bad for this poor Passimian. He didn't live long enough to do anything. I just used the +2 Psychic, and it's all over. And that was my last victory in the tournament that I got on camera. I say tournament, online competition. But yeah, the Battle of Alola, Masters Division. I had a lot of fun. Even though I didn't do that great overall, it was still a really fun online competition. And I just wanted to share my experience of it with everybody watching out there. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing this experience with me. And I promise I will get back to my adventures in Moon version in the very near future. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next time.